London is a vibrant, picture-perfect destination with many world-famous attractions that are found in no other city. This bustling metropolis of over 8 million residents warmly welcomes visitors from all over the world. The pubs and taverns of Greater London are both a historical journey into the past and also places where great ales, lagers, and ciders are served up. We researched 14 best pubs of London lists, and the following 20 establishments made at least 8 of those lists. Check out the year they were established, and you'll realize just how historic these places truly are. I mean, some of them are even older than I am. Our pub crawl host, Chris Cheeseman, graduated from King's College in London with a degree in history and war studies. He has also attained qualifications in both beer brewing and cellar services, and at one time was senior brewer at the Westerham Brewery in Kent. He has combined these two careers and hosts pub crawls to some of London's best pubs and taverns. 3 of the 4 pubs we visited with Chris are in our top 20 list.
It's called the Viaduct Tavern because it is named after the Holborn Viaduct. The Holborn Viaduct is a bridge that extends off in this direction and would take you over towards Holborn. You can see a picture of this in the pub sign just over there. Now, the pub itself was built in the 1860s, and when it was first built, it was built to be a Victorian gin palace. This is one of the last Victorian gin palaces that we have left in London, so it gives you an idea as to what they would have looked like. Very, very wealthy looking. When you get inside, you'll notice the whole right hand side of the pub is all marble and all original pictures, original paintings done in 1860 when the pub was built. Now, the landlady who had the pub built, or had the gin palace built I should say, she was apparently particularly grumpy and didn't trust her staff. When you get inside the pub, you'll notice behind the bar what looks like a small confessional booth. This isn't a confessional booth, it's actually where the landlady used to sit. The idea being, if you wanted to buy gin, you would go and see the landlady in her booth, you would give her money and she would give you tokens. You could then take those tokens to the bar and exchange them for gin. That way, none of her staff could steal any money from her.
The Viaduct Tavern is thought to be one of the most haunted places in London, and the basement jail cells have created a mecca for people who study paranormal activities. Now, for more information about eerie places like the Viaduct, I strongly recommend you check out amyscrypt.com. She even has stories about strange places in Canada.
Now, they were called the Blackfriars because they used to wear black habits or black capes, as you can see modelled by this big fiberglass monk here. Now, the monks are long gone. They were dissolved, their monastery was dissolved in the 1500s, but the area retained the name Blackfriars after those monks. And the pub itself was built in 1875, The interior of the pub in 1905 was decorated to look a little bit like the monastery that used to inhabit this area. It probably looked nothing like the interior of this pub. It's more of an artist's impression of what the monastery would look like. But the pub is ridiculously over the top. There's so many weird decorations in this pub, so make sure you look in all the different nooks and crannies of the pub. It used to be separated out based on class. The back room, the dining room today, is the old upper class area, and it is ridiculously over the top. There's over 50 different types of marble in there, mosaics on the ceiling, sayings related to Aesop's fables, and carvings related to Old English nursery rhymes. It's a fantastic little area of the pub. Make sure you have a look in there. Because they have records showing that this pub existed in the 1500s on this spot. Unfortunately, that 1500s pub was burnt down during the Great Fire of London, and it was rebuilt 1 year later, as the sign outside says there, in 1667. And what makes this pub really special is that 1667 part of the pub is still standing today. On the other side of the corridor there, you have a room called the Chop House, or the Chop Room. This pub became really well known for its meat chops and its meat pies, and the pub was a known haunt of Charles Dickens and Samuel Johnson. Hopefully you all know who Charles Dickens is. Samuel Johnson is the guy who wrote the first English dictionary. Now also you can go down the stairs, and that will take you down into what is unimaginatively called the cellar bar. This is the oldest part of the building, the newest part of the pub. If you go right down into the cellar bar, that area down there was dug out by the Whitefriars Monastery to be their crypt, and some of the brickwork down there still dates back to the 1500s. And you will notice above the bar a small glass cabinet. In that cabinet is a stuffed parrot. Now this parrot was called Polly the Parrot, and when it was alive it was gifted to the pub by an old sea captain. It had spent a long time at sea, and it had therefore picked up pretty bad language. And people found it hilarious to basically just come to the pub and be abused by the parrot while they were drinking. Everybody loved the parrot, in particular the journalists loved it. And on slow news days they would often pen stories involving Polly the Parrot to fill up their columns. When the parrot did eventually die of pneumonia in 1926, they think because of all the smoke that it was breathing at the time, they were so gutted that they had him stuffed and put him above the bar so he could live here forevermore. And the journalists were obviously very gutted because, as I said before, they all really loved the parrot. So his death was actually reported in over 200 newspapers.
Have you ever wondered who has been looking after the country of England since 1667, when ye old Cheshire Cheese Tavern began looking after their clientele? Come on, let's take a look.
Our final pub is also a very ornate building. It's probably the opposite of the last pub we've just come from. Very high ceilings, very wealthy looking inside. As it stands today, although it stands on the site of an old pie shop, the building as it stands today was actually built by the Bank of England to be the law department for the bank. As I said, very wealthy looking. It still looks very much as it did when it was the law department, apart from the fact there's a huge bar in the centre. That's obviously good for us, because that's where we're going to get our drinks from. There are two clocks in there, one on the back wall and one above the bar. And these are both original to the building and both frozen at 14 minutes past 12. That is the time of the last trade the Bank of England had in that building. They then turned the clocks off and they never restarted.